wait. I should put on the microphone, right? Should I use the microphone? No need. Huh? Okay. Gurave Gaurachandaya Radhikaya Tadale Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadabhakti Shri Nandananam Bande Radhika Chananadvayam Samayuktam Vrindavanam Ujami Radham Madhavindanetram Smarami Radham Madhurasmitasyam Vadami Radham Kuruna Badaram Tato Mano Yasti Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo. So first of all, I offer pranams to our Gurudev, Vishnupad, Srisimad Bhaktivedanta, Narayan Gosai Maharaj, our Shiksha Guru, Sri Gaur Govinda Maharaj, Sri Bhaktivedanta Madhusudan Gosai Maharaj, all Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. Hare Krishna. Thank you for coming. So, 15th chapter of Jaiva-Dharma, that is called Jiva-tattva. But one more page we have of the 14th chapter. We'll just quickly finish that. So there was discussion, what is Nirvishesh Brahm? So the Mayavadis, anyway, some people say that is Bhagavan without his Shakti. The problem comes, Bhagavan can never be without his Shakti. Bhagavan means with his Shakti. Okay? You cannot have sun without sunlight. So, the meaning is Bhagavan, the Nirvishesh Brahma is Bhagavan with his Shakti, but that Shakti not manifest its potencies. So here is one other explanation. Okay. We heard that Shakti and Shaktiman, non-different, but at the same time, for us, for pastimes, Shakti and Shaktiman always have two forms. So Brajanath asks, if we accept the tattva beyond Shakti, separate from Shakti, different from Shakti, that is devoid of characteristics that would be the same as the Nirvishesh Brahma described in the Upanishads. So Babaji says, but the Nirgun Brahma, the Brahma Jyoti described in the Upanishads has no desire. But the Parampurush, Sri Krishna, always has desire. He is actually composed of free will, Swaichamoya. He is possessed of all forms and attributes. He is possessed of Purushata, the feeling of being a man, of being the enjoyer. Krishna possessed the feel of being Bhaktatva, the enjoyer, of being Adhikara, the authority, and Swatantra, independent. So these four qualities always in Shaktiman. Okay, what are they? Independent free will, the quality of being Purush, of being a man, Bhaktat, Bhaktritva, the quality of being the enjoyer, and Adhikar, having the authority. So these four qualities always in Shaktiman. In reality, Krishna and his Shakti are non-different. The Shakti that indicates Krishna's presence is also Shakti, is also Krishna. Right? So, because the Shakti of Krishna in the form of Radhika is feminine, so the only difference in the tattva between Radha and Krishna is their abhiman, their identity, self-identity. Krishna possesses the identity of being Krishna, the supreme male, And Radhika possesses the abhiman of being the supreme, of being the female, the enjoyed. That is the only difference in tattva between them. So Brajanath asks if Krishna has desire to enjoy, what is Radharani's desire? Radharani's desire is always subordinate to the desire of Krishna. None of her desires are independent of him. Therefore, when we hear of Krishna's Leela, of Krishna bowing to Radhika, Radhika chastising Krishna, we should not misunderstand. Tattva, Radhika doing all this by the desire of Krishna for the happiness of Krishna. Okay, so we heard this. So if one is hearing Katha, there should be some change, right, Prema? Some internal change should be there. So Brajanath felt himself changing day after day, also in meditating on all his Harikatha. So his family was talking about him getting married, but Brajanath gave no importance to that at all. He just always thinking about Harikatha and thinking when I can go for more sadhu sang. So chapter 15. The next day Brajanath came a little early because chapter 15 is a little thick, a little condensed. Babaji took him to Srivasangan. Brajanath, tears were falling down from his face. And Babaji asked why. He said, it seems this whole world has no meaning. The only truth, the only nectar is the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. So please, Babaji Maharaj, you tell me in Tattva, who am I? So when Sanatana Goswami came to Mahaprabhu, same thing. Ke ame ke nama janataputra. Amitu na jani keman hita. Who am I? Why am I suffering? If I don't know this, how can I get any benefit in my life? Srila Chivaka Maharaj said, Mahaprabhu could have said, that is a stupid question. But Mahaprabhu did not. So this is the beginning of Vedanta Ato Brahma Jigyasa. Now you have the human form of life. You should ask, Jigyas, who am I? So Babaji said, oh, my son, you have blessed me by asking such a question. The day the Jiva asks this question, that day all auspiciousness comes. So he quoted verse 5 of Dasmul. Okay, so the essence of that, Bhagavan is like a fire and Jiva is like a spark from that fire. Although the Jiva are non-different from Hari, they are eternally different from him. The eternal difference between the Jiva and Ishvara is Ishvara is the Lord of Maya, and the Jiva may be controlled by Maya. Even in the liberated stage, due to his constitutional nature. Prabhupada said the liberated souls may fall down because that is their nature, but they never do. So Brajanath asked, okay, this is Lord Chaitanya's teachings, I accept, but maybe many people not accept. So can you give some praman, some evidence from other scriptures? Like when I told Didi everyone was learning Dasmul, she said, yes, Mahaprabhu's followers, the Gaudiyas, we can accept all this, but outside person, a little difficult for them. So for those persons who have no faith in Lord Chaitanya, then maybe they believe the Shrutis, the other section of the Vedas, but what Lord Chaitanya speaks, this is also Veda. So, very interesting here is one quote from the Upanishad that I never knew before. Sometimes we think Tatasta, this is the idea of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, but no, this is in Upanishad also. Tasve etas purusha du evastani bhavad idancha palolokastanam scha sandhyam tritiyam snapna stanam tasma sandhya stani tistani evi etiube stani postyadidancha palolokastanam scha. Okay, very nice. This is from the Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad. So, there are two positions of the Jiva Purush. Actually, Jiva is Shakti, potency, But many places, because the jiva has the tendency to be independent and enjoy, then many places jiva also called purush. So there are two positions about which the jiva should inquire, the jiva purush. The material world and the spiritual world. But the jiva is situated in a third position, which is dream-like, snapna stan, a place of dreaming. Why? Because the tatastha, there is no influence of the Surup Shakti, there is no influence of Maya Shakti. So it's like a neutral place, like a place of dreaming. No deep sleep, but no wakeful, like in the middle. There is no sattva rajatama there, but there is no visuddha sattva. So it's called, the tatastha is like a dreaming state. And you cannot dream forever, right? One day you have to wake up. So Guru Maharaj said the jiva cannot stay in tatastha because the nature of the jiva has to go here, have to go there because that is nature. Like you take mustard seeds and put on the knife of an edge, the mustard seed cannot stay on the edge, the edge of the knife. The mustard seed have to go here, the mustard seed have to go there. So it is this juncture between the material and the spiritual world which is the origin of the jiva. So this describes the marginal nature of the jiva shakti. We heard before, marginal because he has potency, the soul, she has potency to live in the material world or the spiritual world. Okay. So another quote from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, as a large fish sometimes goes to the eastern bank of the river and sometimes to the western bank of the river, so the jiva being situated in the causal ocean, the Karanajal between the material and spiritual world is a river called the Viraj. It has many names. Here it's also called the causal ocean. In that marginal position rests Mahavishnu. From there he creates. From there he impregnates the jivas by glancing to Maya. So the jiva, like a fish in the causal ocean, the Viraj, the Tatastha, can see here, but no experience. That is important. The jiva have no experience. Maya is suffering, and Krishna's seva is happiness. Why? If the jiva had experience, that would disturb his free will. Okay. So, Brajanath asked, what is the Vedantic definition of Tatastha? The space between the ocean and the land is called Tata. Tata means place, bank. The place where the land meets the water is not water, it's not land. It's in a third place. Sta means situated. Tata sta, that place between the material and the spiritual world. Okay. So Tata is the place, the line which divides the two. And Jiva Shakti is situated at the place where the two meet. Actually, Sridhar Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj explained, Tatastha is not a place, it's a consciousness. Just to make it more bewildering. Afterwards, this chapter described, we are using all these examples, land, ocean, fire, and spark, but these are material examples. No? The reality is far beyond all these things. All this is explained in this chapter. Okay, so as the Chit Jagat, the spiritual world, is very powerful, the material Maya is also powerful. There are innumerable jivas situated between these two. So the jiva comes from the Tatastha Shakti, therefore his nature is also Tatastha. So we heard all this, no? So when the jiva, because he has tattva nature, he looks towards Bhagavan and becomes inclined. Why he looks towards Bhagavan? Free will. At the same time, he is influenced by Krishna's Shakti, Krishna's potency. Oh, he wants to serve me, so the Swarup Shakti gives shelter to that jiva. He enters the spiritual world and serves Bhagavan in his pure conscious spiritual form. However, if he looks towards Maya, he's swallowed like a shark. No? He already inclined to oppose Krishna because he looked towards Maya, then his spiritual nature is immediately covered. Okay? So he asks, is there any Maya in the constitution of the jiva? No. The jiva has no connection with Maya in his pure state, in any state, no connection. Therefore, the jiva is created solely from the spiritual potency. But because he is very small, minute, can be covered by Maya. But there is not even a scent of Maya in the jiva's existence. So now here is 4 arguments of Mayavad. Okay, 4. So Brajana said, I heard from one teacher, when the all-pervading Brahman, when it becomes divided, a fraction of that is covered by Maya and becomes a jiva. No, they give example of a pot. The sky is unlimited and all-pervading, but you can capture some of the sky in a pot. That's like the jiva. But when you break the pot, again he becomes the sky like this. So when the jiva becomes liberated, again he becomes Brahman. Is this good? Is this a good idea? Babaji Maharaj said, this is Mayavad only. Complete Mayavad. Number 1, if there's only one potency called Brahma, where did Maya come from? Number 2, how can Maya catch Brahma? Brahma is full of knowledge. Number 2, where did Maya even come from if there's only one Brahman? Number 2, how can Maya cover Brahma? If it covers Brahma, then who's going to liberate it again? All these questions come. Number 3, Brahma has no Shakti. We heard all these arguments yesterday. They believe the Pada-tattva has no Shakti. So if there's no Shakti, where did Maya come from? Maya is a Shakti. Another one, anyway, if we accept that the transcendental potency of Brahma, then how can an inferior potency capture it? How can Maya Shakti capture the Chit Shakti if you accept the potency of Brahma? Impossible, because the spiritual potency never captured by the inferior Maya. Bhagavan is never captured by Maya. Anyway, if Maya has no independent potency, no desire, then why she does like that? If Maya has no will, no desire, then why she'll capture Brahma? Brahma is indivisible, then how it can be divided? Many, many ways Bhaktivinoda Thakur destroyed this Mayavad philosophy. But the conclusion is Maya has no role in the creation of the jiva. The jiva is superior, the jiva is atomic, true, but still it is superior to Maya. Okay. So Rajana said, I heard another teacher say, the jiva is a reflection of Brahma. The sun is reflected in water. Brahma becomes the jiva when it's reflected in Maya. Babaji says again, this is Mayavad philosophy. If Brahma is all-pervading and unlimited, how can it reflect into something? There's nothing other. There's no another thing to reflect in. Okay. An unlimited entity can never reflect. Where it reflect to? There's no space. So this theory of reflection is also rejected. And Brajana said, I heard a sannyasi say, there is no real existence of a jiva. One only thinks he's a jiva because of illusion. But when his illusion is removed, then he can again remember, I was always Brahma. Babaji Maharaj said, this is Mayavad again. According to Shastra, Ekam Eva Dvitiyam, there is nothing separate from Brahma. If there is nothing except Brahma, where has illusion come from? I remember one time we were in China. We went on this mountain and there was a monk. There's one photo someone took. He had wearing his quilt. He was wearing one like coat and was with many patches, many colors. And he was talking his Buddhist philosophy. We're little asking him some questions. Everything is false. Everything is illusion. Actually, nothing exists. And I said, if nothing exists, where did illusion come from? Could not answer, He could not, his mouth completely silent. He could not answer anything. If everything come from, if there's nothing exists, then where everything came from? He could not answer. So if there's only Ekam Eva Dvitiyam, there's nothing else except Brahman, then where Maya come from? And Brahman is free from defect. How could he forget who he is? Brahman means Pragyanan Brahman. Brahman means full knowledge. Then how can someone with full knowledge forget who he is? Contradictory. And if you accept there is a thing called Maya, then you reject the non-dual qualities of the Absolute Truth. In many ways, they run into difficulty with their arguments. Many ways. One time, Brajnath said, another Pandit came and he said, nothing else exists except the Jiva. The Jiva creates everything in his dreams. And because of this, he enjoys happiness and distress. When the dream breaks, he sees there is nothing but Brahma. Right? A dreaming Brahman. Babaji said, this is again Mayavad. If Brahma is a non-dual, then how could it possibly produce a Jiva? Anyway, Mayavadis use many examples like this to confuse people. They use the example of Jiva-tattva, mistaking. You see this mother of pearl on an oyster, you think it's silver. Or you see a rope to be a snake, so the Brahman thinks he's a Jiva, like that, mistakes himself to be a Jiva. But their philosophy cannot establish Advaita-tattva, the non-dual nature of the Absolute Truth. These are all Mayavad arguments. Maharaj says, no, silver exists and a mother of pearl exists. But to mistake one for another, this is the mistake. Not that silver doesn't exist, it exists. Okay, so Brajnath heard all this, yes. Maya has nothing to do with the creation of the Jiva. I understand now that Jiva is by nature subject to Maya. So is the Jiva created by the Chit Shakti? No. Remember we heard? Remember Nitya? Just say yes. Bhagavan has one Shakti only, the Pada Shakti. She has three Kriyas. That which manifests the spiritual world, that which manifests the material world, and that which manifests the Jiva. So the question is, does the Jiva come from the Chit Shakti? Babaji says no. Because the Chit Shakti is complete, it's Krishna's own energy, own Swarup Shakti. So everything coming from the Chit Shakti is complete and perfect. No? Already we heard this. Radhika has four types of sakis. They are all Nityasiddhas. They are the Pran sakis, Paraprashta sakis. Okay, Nityas, they are, anyway, do I have to remember them all again? Only the Nityasakis are come from the Jiva, but the other four, they are all perfect in Nityasiddhas. No? As well as the Astasakis, they are rather on his own direct expansions. So the conclusion is that Chit Shakti is the complete Shakti. It cannot produce incomplete Jivas. Okay. So here is a little complicated. Okay. All the complete tattvas are transformation of the complete potency. Like the spiritual world, and everyone and everything in the spiritual world is complete and full of knowledge, full of bliss. But the jivas, especially who are captured by Maya, are not perfect and not complete. Because everything is in Bhagavan, completeness must be in him, and incompleteness is also must be in him. So that which manifests by the complete Shakti, that is the Nityasiddhas, and because he possesses everything, incompleteness must be in him also. So what is manifest by the incomplete Shakti, that is the Tatastha Jivas. So here carefully, Nityatargani. So, Sri Krishna always is, because he's non-different from each of his Shaktis. Krishna is also fully present in all his Shakti also. In the spiritual world, he manifests his Swarupa as Sri Krishna and Sri Narayan. Then he situates himself in the Jiva Shakti and manifests himself as the Vilas Murti of Braj, Baladev. That means Krishna gave Baladev Adhikar, right to control the Jiva Shakti. Okay? Not that Baladev becomes transformed by the Jiva Shakti, that is not the meaning. Okay? So Krishna takes a form and situates him as Baladev and situates himself as the presiding deity of the Jiva Shakti. Then Krishna establishes himself in Maya and manifests the form of the three Purusha avatars, Mahavishnu, Garbhadaksai Vishnu, and Kiradaksai Vishnu. Means Krishna has given him right, you control Maya. Krishna has given Baladev right, you control the Jiva Shakti. And Krishna doing his own pastimes in the spiritual world. So, in his form in Braj, he manifests all the spiritual affairs to the topmost degree. In his Baladev Swarup, he manifests eternally liberated souls who render a type of service to Krishna. Again as Sankarshan in Paravyoma, Baladev manifests again as Sankarshan in Vaikuntha. And Sankarshan, Mahasankarshan manifests a type of souls for the service of Narayan. Okay? These are all the functions of the Chit Shakti, because complete and perfect. Okay? But Mahavishnu situates himself in the Jiva Shakti. And he manifests the Jivas who have the potential to be involved in the material world. So Mahavishnu regulates the Jiva Shakti to produce the Tatastha Jivas. Because Shakti cannot do anything without the desire of Bhagavan. So Mahavishnu desires to create a defective Jiva. Defective is not a good word. What's a good word? A minute Jiva of a marginal nature. And by that desire, the Jiva Shakti manifests unlimited Jivas. And where Mahavishnu resides, this Karan ocean, this what you call the Viraj, so all is interconnected. These Jivas manifested by the desire of Mahavishnu from the Jiva Shakti are susceptible to the influence of Maya. They can be controlled by Maya. But that manifested by the Chit Shakti can never be controlled by Maya. Okay, the countless Jivas who have been conquered by Maya are now controlled by the three modes of nature. Bearing all this in mind, the Siddhanta is that only the Jiva Shakti and not the Chit Shakti manifest the Jivas. Right, some people think we come from the spiritual world, because in the spiritual world everything manifested by the Chit Shakti. There is no Jiva Shakti in the material world. in the spiritual world. Sorry. Okay. Now, Brajanath asked a nice question. You said earlier the spiritual world is eternal, and so is the jiva. If this is so, how can a jiva be created? If he's created, he exists, but at previous time he did not exist. How can we accept the jiva as eternal? So Babaji Maharaj explains the time, the space, everything in the material world influences our thinking. In material time, there's past, present, future, but in the spiritual world, there's only the eternal present tense. Every event in the spiritual world is eternally present. Think about that. Every event in the spiritual world is eternally present. Everyone's trying to understand it, but it's impossible. So anyway, so the next few pages, Babaji Maharaj just explains this. No, we are trying to explain something which is completely transcendental and beyond the jiva's understanding. But what to do apart from material language and material examples, there is no other way to make an impression and an understanding in the jiva. This is all called Sakya Nyaya. Where is the moon? Or someone asks, where's the moon? You say, look, look. It's in the branches of the tree. You look in the branches of the tree, oh, there's the moon. Actually, the moon is millions of miles away from the tree. But to give us some direction, some indication, some conception, then we're given all these material examples like fire, spark, like a fish, all these things. We use language like created, all these things. So, he said you cannot understand these things now because words have some defect. Our intelligence is now captured by Maya, so you cannot understand. Your body is material, your moods are all material, but the essence of your being is not material. So chant Harinam. The more you chant Harinam, the more you realize your spiritual essence, and the more this transcendental understanding will come. Right, Nitya? Okay. First we have to stay awake in Kata. That will be the first achievement. So, anyway. So this goes on a few pages as explanation. The devotees can read it at their leisure. Okay? So, Babaji Maharaj now discusses a Chintya Beda Beda Tattva. Like a spark from a fire is one with the fire and different. So how much is the same? How much is different? Question comes. Maharaj said, is it said 90% same or 10% different? Is it 50-50? It's not said anywhere. How much is the same and how much is different? Therefore, Mahaprabhu used the word achintya, inconceivable. So, Babaji Maharaj says, in the material world, when something is produced from something, it becomes different from it. It is completely different. For example, when a chicken lays an egg, Jayashree, the chicken and the egg are different. When a person cuts their hair and fingernails, at one stage they were there and now they become different. Maharaj gave an example yesterday. Hair depends on the body, but body does not depend upon the hair. Simple example, but nice. Fingernails depend on the body, but body does not depend on the fingernails. So, the nature of spiritual things is different, however. What is manifested from Krishna always remains non-different from him. Okay. So the jivas which come from Krishna's potency, if Krishna's potency is non-different from Krishna because it's his energy, that which comes as a product of that Shakti also remains non-different from him. Right, Prema? Right? Okay. Just remember the chicken and the egg or the hair. You can understand. So the sages the sadhus to help us understand, give examples of fingernails, hair, chicken eggs, all these things, sparks from fire. But again, by doing bhajan, we will understand everything properly. So, he gives some example. If you cut a piece of gold from a bangle, from the perspective of the bangle, the piece of gold remains the same. It's not different. But from the perspective of the piece of gold, the bangle is different. Okay. From the perspective of gold, the bangle is not different from the original piece. However, from the perspective of the bangle and the piece are different. Okay. This is another material example. From the point of view of Jiva-tattva, there is no difference between Bhagavan, Ishvara, and the Jiva. Whereas from another point of view, there is difference, status and quantity. Prabhupada used a simple language. Qualitatively one, quantitatively different. Like a glass of water and the ocean. The ocean and the water in the ocean and then the glass is same, but difference. No? So the glass of water is very small and the ocean is very large. Okay. So, from the point of view of Jiva-tattva, there is no difference. But from the point of view of status and quantity, there is difference. What is status? Bhagavan is the controller of Maya, and Jiva is not. And from the quantitative difference, Bhagavan is infinite and unlimited, and the Jiva is not. So the Ishvara is complete, Vibhu Chaitanya, unlimited consciousness, and the Jiva is Anu Chaitanya, atomic conscious. Okay. So anyway, this goes on. Again, this is called Arundhati Nyaya. There's a star called Arundhati. Very hard to see it because there's thousands of stars in the sky. So, you look at the moon and you look a little bit to the left, that is called Arundhati Nyaya. Some material example to illuminate the subject matter. Okay. So, Brajanath asked a very question. What is the difference between Ishvara and Jiva? Okay. First, you should understand the non-difference between Ishvara and Jiva. Ishvara is the embodiment of knowledge, the knower. Bhagavan is the embodiment of knowledge, the knower, and one who reflects, and the enjoyer. 4 qualities of Bhagavan. Bhagavan is self-manifest, Jiva, Swaprakash, and Paraprakash. He illuminates others. The Jiva and Maya are not independent, come from Krishna. Without Krishna, they have no existence. Krishna has independent desire. Krishna is the knower of everything. Okay, so this is the non-different. The Jiva also have these qualities. Jiva has knowledge. He also knows. He also can think. He's also the enjoyer. To some degree, he is also self-effulgent. He has desire. He knows this body. Okay. So that is the non-difference between Jiva and Bhagavan. So, however, there is a difference. Bhagavan is omnipotent. And the Jiva is atomic. Bhagavan is complete. The Jiva is incomplete. Bhagavan is always the controller of Maya, and the Jiva can be controlled by Maya. Krishna, Ishvara, God, is the Lord of Sarup Shakti, the Jiva Shakti, and Maya Shakti. The Jiva is a Shakti. He cannot control any. He cannot control Shakti. Shakti is the maidservant of Krishna. He is the Lord of Shakti. Shakti is activated by the desire of Krishna. Therefore, the jiva is under the control of the jiva is a Shakti and is also under the control of Shakti. That is the difference. Okay. So there is difference and non-difference. How much difference and non-difference? Achintya. So, okay, I think we covered everything there. So from the perspective of their spiritual nature, there is no difference between Jiva and Ishvara. But from the quantity perspective, there is difference. Again, he's just going over this again. Okay. So, can you please summarize the nature of the Jiva? So here's a nice, it's a little long, but I included the full paragraph. Okay, so try to hear carefully. Please explain the nature of the eternal Jiva even more clearly. Babaji Maharaj. This is Raghunath Das Babaji Maharaj, disciple of Raghunath Das Goswami. The Jiva is atomic consciousness. He is endowed with a quality of knowledge. Therefore, the Jiva can say Aham, I, because he has knowledge. The Jiva is the enjoyer, the thinker, and one who comprehends. The Jiva has an eternal form, which is very subtle. Just in this world, the material hands and legs combine to perform an attractive shape. In the same way, the Jiva possesses a very beautiful atomic spiritual body, which is composed of different spiritual parts. Even now, inside Nitya Tarangini, there's a Jiva with eyes and legs, nose, hands, mouth, teeth, clothes, identity, seva. Everything is there. Like the entire tree is inside a seed. Okay. We heard that yesterday. That is the three contingents of the Swarup Shakti. Sandini, Samvit, Ladini also present in the Jiva. Sandini present in the Jiva's eternal form. Samvit present in the Jiva's eternal relationship. And Ananda. Ananda is present in the Jiva's eternal mood of seva or happiness. Okay, so the Jiva have eternal spiritual atomic form. Right, Prema? Okay. But now, when the Jiva comes to Maya, that eternal spiritual form is covered by two bodies, the gross body and the subtle body. Okay? At the time of death, one leaves the gross body, but the subtle body carries the atomic Jiva according to its desires and karma to the next body. Therefore, the gross body changes, but the subtle body does not change. Okay? The Jiva's conditioned nature in the new body is a result of the influence from his previous births. So hopefully, Damayanti, if you stick to this path, next birth will no more California. Next birth will be some nice, good, auspicious birth. So this nature determines the vana in which they take birth in, next birth. After taking birth in India, entering Varnashram, again can perform karma. Okay. So the first covering of the eternal spiritual form is the subtle body, and the second is the gross body. So of course there's eternal difference between the spiritual body, the Siddha Deha, and the subtle body. Okay. Krishna describes this in Bhagavad Gita. My separated eightfold energies, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. But separate from this is Paraprakriti. That is the Jiva, which is my separated part and parcel. Okay? Since all created energies are manifested from these two types of Prakriti, the Jiva Shakti and Maya Shakti, you should know that I, Bhagavan, am the sole origin and cause of everything. These two verses in Bhagavad Gita describe the eternal difference between the soul and the gross and subtle bodies. Okay. So, Babaji Maharaj explained that the ego of the jiva's subtle body becomes more and more strong, then he becomes more and more attached to Maya. The false ego, I am the enjoyer of Maya. So, but the jiva also has its original spiritual ego. We heard all this in previous chapters. And this pure spiritual ego manifests again in the perfected state, the liberated state. The material self-conception, jada abhiman, arising from the gross and subtle body remains very strong. Therefore, the relation with spirit has been forgotten. This subtle body is this linga siddhi, a subtle body, is very fine, so that the gross body can cover it. Anyway, so Brajanath concludes, I understand the eternal swarupa of the jiva is spiritual and atomic in nature. Within that swarupa is a beautiful body composed of spiritual limbs. In the conditioned state, that beautiful spiritual body becomes covered by the subtle body and the gross body. And because of the connection of the subtle body and the gross body, then the mind, intelligence, and ego become agitated and disturbed. And actually, the false ego, the mind, and intelligence have consciousness because of the influence of the soul. Right? Srila Gokuma said, what is the mind? Chit abhas, a reflection, a shadow of the consciousness of the soul. So we think, I'm thinking like Nitya when she chants, she hears the voice, her own voice in her head. I'm hungry, what I'm going to do today, right? That of the connection of the soul with the mind, and the mind also appears to have consciousness. Okay. In the conditioned state, that beautiful spiritual body remains covered by the subtle body and the material body. Okay. So is the jiva faultless and uncovered in its liberated state? Babaji says yes. The atomic spiritual form is free from defect. But because he's now very weak, because no contact with the spiritual potency. So, those who consider themselves liberated without service to Krishna are an illusion. Okay. Hare Krishna. Wow, today was quite short. Finished chapter 15. So I know, have you learned the verse? Amnaya praha tattvam harim iha paramam sarva shaktim rasabdim tad vivanam saji prakriti kuvalitam tad vimuktam cha bhavet veda ved prakasham saklamapi sadhanam sudha bhakti na sadyati tad pratyavati sajanan koda swayam saha. Vasudha learning? Come on, it's only one verse. Jesus Christ. Hare Krishna. You're learning, right, Malachi? I'm also a little behind on learning the 10 verses because here is crazy busy. But anyway, no excuse. I'll punish myself by, having more halva than normal. Something I'll do. But these 10 verses we should learn, okay? One guy sent me I asked him in Australia, you have these 10. Someone did a very nice word for word. He sent 2 extra ones. I tried to delete them, and I deleted the whole photos, all 10 of them. So I asked him to send them again, and I'm just waiting until he checks his Facebook. There's very nice. You print it out and you can read nicely. Okay, so Jiva-tattva, no excuse. Very nice explanation. Okay. So this is the first basic of Mahaprabhu's teachings to Sanatana Goswami. This is all Sambandha Gyan. When Sanatana asks, who am I? Why am I suffering? Then The question, who am I? Jiva Swarupa Hoy Krishna Nityadas Krishna Ratatasta Shakti Arbeda Bed Prakash. Mahaprabhu answered Sanatana Goswami's first question, who am I? You are the soul, Krishna's eternal servant. You have manifested from Krishna's Tatasta Shakti. Therefore, you are different and non-different from him. Bhaktivinoda Thakur just expanding that in this Jaiva-Dharma. So there are two types of jivas. One is captured by Maya, and the other one is liberated from Maya. So the day after tomorrow is chapter 16, jivas possessed by Maya. Okay. Anyway, today's class is a little short. Go Premanandi. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare. Hare Ramo. Hare Ramo. Ramo Ramo. Hare Hare. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Hari Bol. Go Premanandi. How many watched? How many watched? Yeah, we started right on time. Many people come late.